In this topic, we're going to talk about Microsoft Dataverse, and Dataverse is actually just a new name for Common Data Service. If you're already familiar, Microsoft has decided to change the name to a Dataverse and also change some of the terminologies within the Dataverse as well. And we're going to talk through those little differences. Dataverse is simply a low-code, no-code database that you can create yourself through the use of GUI. You don't have to code that database or anything. And we can use that Dataverse to write data to it and connect to Power BI. It's a very nice solution that does not make you have to code your own database from scratch. In order to get started, you just have to go to make.powerapps.com. You have to ensure that you have a Power Apps license as well. So let's go ahead and get started building our Dataverse environment and eventually pulling some data into Power BI. After you've navigated to make.powerapp.com, go to the Solution tab on the left side, and we'll see that we don't have any solutions yet. We just need to create a new environment. I'm going to give my environment a name DA-100. I'm going to leave my region as US. We have the options to choose between a production environment type or a trial environment. Let's click Create Environment. Okay, it looks like my environment is created. Now I have to create a database. I just have to click that Create My Database button. I'm going to change my currency to USD and leave my language to English. And I do want to check that Include Sample Apps and Data. I'll click Create My Database, and this is going to take a few minutes in order to set up the sample database. In order to check for our sample data is loading, go to the Data tab and Tables, and we'll see that we still don't have any showing up here. So I'm going to refresh until this data is built yet. We see it still says building your database. That looks just about a minute to load all those sample solutions with sample data. As you'll see them on a Solution tab on the left side, and I have a number of solutions already created. We have default solutions, we have asset checkout. These solutions are simply individual containers that already have some tables built out so that you don't have to do that. For example, if you click on default solution, we see all of the tables included in this solution. As you can see, we have a bunch of different things included in this solution out of the box. But the only thing I really want to focus on are the tables, because the tables are going to store our data. We see that we have an account table, and that's already built out for us. Let's go ahead and click into the account table and see the columns that make up this account table. So let's let that load for a second. We see all of these default columns. We have account, account name, account number, all of this address information. So all of these columns within this account table have already been created for you. You don't have to do anything. You can add columns to this default table, but it's just really convenient. That it gives you a lot of the most important things that you'll probably need if you were building a database by yourself. One of those subtle differences I mentioned at the beginning of this video between database and common data services was the common data services referred to tables as entities and columns as fields. There's a little bit confusion for people that worked with data very often. So in Microsoft Dataverse, they renamed entities and fields to tables and columns, just to make it in line with what most people thought in the data environment. So with that, let's go ahead and build our own solution, so we don't have to rely on one of the pre-built solutions, although they are very convenient. So I'm going to go back to the solution here, and we're going to create a new solution. Let's pretend that we want to create a new database for our e-commerce website. I'm going to call this Displaying an E-commerce, and we give it the name of e-commerce publisher. I'll just select the default publisher from our organization and leave the version as is. Let's go ahead and click Create. We see that the e-commerce solution is now available to us. Let's go ahead and click into that and see what it has. We see that it has no components by default. Let's create a new table, so click on New Table. I'm going to give this table a name. I'm going to call this borders, and it has a display name of orders. The only name is orders. We have the options to provide a primary name column. I'm going to leave that as is with a name, and then I'm going to click create. That's going to create our orders table within our e-commerce solution. And if we refresh this, we will see that all of the columns that we have available to us out of the box, we see that the Dataverse has created all these great columns that we probably will need, such as create by, create on, modified by, modified on. We have owners, owning team. We have a lot of great information here, but we can add other columns if you want to. For example, we can click on this add column button here, and let's say I don't have any column for customer ID. The customer that actually places the order, I can call that customer ID here, leave the name as is. This data type, you can select which data type you want. I probably want my customer ID to be a whole number. So I'm going to click on whole number required. I'm going to make that required instead of optional or recommended. Searchable, yes. And with that, I'm done. I'm going to click this done button. That's going to create this new column called customer ID. And now I'm going to click the save table. So at the end of the saving process, we're going to have our orders table within all the built-in column names and our new customer ID columns. We can create other tables with other columns that we want to, but I'm going to leave it simple with our single table within our new column. So now let's go over to Power BI Microsoft Dataverse into Power BI. So in Power BI, all you have to do is click on Get Data, and let's go to More. And under the Power Platform section, you're going to see all of the options of Power Platform. The old way to connect to this data was with Common Data Service Legacy Connector, but we're no longer going to use that. We want the Dataverse instead. Let's click Connect. It's going to ask us for our database environment domain, and there are a couple of places that you can find this. Let's go over to Power Apps again. The best place to find it would be in the settings item and the session details, and it's going to give you a lot of information here. But what we want is this instant, the URL. We actually want everything after the HTTPS// So everything started with this first letter until .com. We don't want the trailing slash either, so I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that in my environment domain.